Hi everyone, Bandana here. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm talking all about Riven, or its remake, which is also just called Riven. No Masterpiece Edition this time. First, thank you to Cyan for the key so I could play the game and review it. For me, the remake of Riven has been eagerly anticipated for many years, especially since the original Myst has been remade several times since its original release. As some of you will know, I love puzzle and escape room style games, and Riven and its prequel Myst, made by Cyan, were among the first ever such games to hit the PC. Cyan's most recent previous game, Firmament, follows the same formula, though it felt a little bit short compared to many of their other entries, and that includes Riven. The truth is, it's been a hot minute since I played Riven, so much so that I remember only fragments of it, which in many ways is nice as I'm almost replaying it like it's a fresh game. After all, puzzle games just aren't quite as fun if you know all the answers already. It should be noted that this is not just an all-out recreation of the original Riven. Changes have been made to improve the flow in a 3D space and to help the story make more sense. Without going into too much detail and spoiling things, the story follows on from that of Myst. In essence, you are tasked by a man named Atreus with the task of finding his wife, Catherine, in the Age of Riven, and also finding his father and imprisoning him in a special prison age. In return, he will help you get home. Perhaps it's a good point to note for the uninitiated that each of the worlds in the Myst series are called Ages. Anyhow, from that point forward, you are mostly on your own. It's your job to explore, solve puzzles, and hopefully find a way home. So what about the gameplay? Well, while there are many puzzles to solve and secrets to find, there's also a requirement to click on almost everything in the game. Though it should be noted that this can have both positive and negative results. Early on, I actually forgot this a few times and was left confused as to what to do next because I failed to click on or missed a random door handle. You also need to keep your eyes peeled for random side paths. Not everything in this game is a one-way street. Making you slow down to observe and click on things has a second purpose, of course, and is to make you stop and admire the world, and admire you will. One thing that all of Cyan's games have in common is that they are visual masterpieces, kitted out with stunning vistas, fascinating environments, and all kinds of fantastical flora and fauna. It's an area, even going back to the 2D versions of these games, that Cyan have excelled in. If anything, Riven is actually one of the tamer examples of this, and it still looks amazing. As part of your progress, the game will require you to spend some time reading, or at least skim reading, various books, usually journals. Failure to do so and just skipping to the images and diagrams may result in a rather negative end to your game. Not that this happened to me, of course. Nope, not at all. Definitely not. The modern Cyan games obviously have the addition of taking in-game screenshots of the various notes, puzzles, signs and symbols you will come across. But I strongly advise keeping a pen and paper close to hand. You will often find yourself writing down codes or symbols as you slowly work out their meaning in relation to other languages or symbols used in the game. Cyan really do love their secret codes and languages. My biggest piece of advice to anybody playing the game is to note down or screenshot everything that may relate to a puzzle. Or like me, you will find yourself having to backtrack to double check you had the right symbol for this number or that number. There is another clever thing about Riven which I've not touched on yet, and that is the same as with most of Cyan's games, it has branching paths. There's often more than one way to get to your goal as you put the pieces of the puzzle together. In essence, there will be a long way and a short way to do things. Not to mention a handful of distractors thrown in to cause some time wasting on your part. Though if you try to cheat the system by using a guide prematurely, your outcomes may not be as good as you hoped. You have been warned. Now I'll talk in a little bit more detail about my experience with the game, so there might be a few spoilers that sneak their way in here, so you may wish to skip to the conclusion if you don't want to risk it. So, the Age of Riven itself is made up of several islands which you will explore. Some will be accessible at the same time, so this is one of those areas you'll find you can choose your own path. When you first arrive, you will be on the Temple Island and get a rather rude welcome by having your book stolen from you, which then gets taken by another third party. As you may have guessed, the priority then is to really get that book back. Though the reality is you won't see it again till much later. Depending on your observational skills and how easily you get distracted, escaping the first island could take minutes to over an hour. Once you are free, the game opens up a little more and you could end up exploring one of 2 islands. Though to fully explore the Forest Island, which is the first one you'll come to, you will need to have ventured to the 3rd and 4th islands as well. There is a 5th island too, but this does not become truly apparent till later in the story. Interestingly, the islands themselves have more meaning to the puzzles than you may initially think. Hint hint. I will just note that exploration of every nook and cranny is paramount. Without it, you will miss things. Some of these are very important, like a special spyglass that will allow you to see secret symbols left by the locals. And yes, there are other people on the islands, but you will rarely see any sign of them. The locals will for the most part actively avoid and hide, though you may get the odd glimpse on a security camera or see them watching you from a watchtower in the distance. The only real interactions you will experience will be with some of Catherine's followers, though they don't speak English, as well as Atris, Catherine and Gen. These interactions are all dependent on the choices you make within the game. As if it's not clear from my comments so far, there are multiple endings to Riven. Your mileage on the puzzles and codes will vary depending on your specific critical thinking capability. I found that it was very easy to overthink some puzzles at times, especially the meanings of the symbols when translating them back into numbers. Often these types of codes are a lot simpler than I initially thought. Other types of puzzles I slid through with ease. It really depends on how your mind works. The truth is, at times the game was a bit challenging, but even when I got stuck, I was having fun exploring and figuring out where I went wrong, trying to assess what I had missed. And this is the beauty of this type of game. It's not a race. You do it all at your own pace, and if you are truly stumped, then you can always check a guide or someone else's playthrough, and you'll see everybody get stuck somewhere a little bit. Obviously, when it comes to the graphics and sound, graphically the game is stunning. I mean, just look at the vistas, look at the world they've created. It all looks fantastic, and they've done a really good job at recreating their original 2D world in 3D. The only letdown perhaps is that some of the character models look a little bit cartoony, which is a bit of a shame. Hopefully for the next game, if there's going to be people, they can sort of upscale these a bit more and make them look a little bit more realistic. Sound-wise, as ever with Cyan's game, the music is fantastic, it's mystical, all the sound effects are great. There's nothing to fault here. In summary, Riven for some people will be a trip down memory lane, well at least if your memory is good enough to remember it all. Mine certainly wasn't. For others it will be a pretty fresh experience. As with Myst before it, the transition to the world of 3D gaming has been a great success. It's a visually impressive game that will challenge you in all the right ways. I think it's safe to say that we've come a long way since the point-and-click adventure days of the original, but there's still plenty of clicking to be done, and that's definitely not a bad thing. It should be noted that Riven, as with all of Cyan's games, will vary in length depending on your familiarity with these puzzle-style games. Regardless, I strongly advise you stop and take the time to smell the roses and really appreciate the impressive worlds they have created. Riven gets the exceptionally rare 5 out of 5 from me, as I really struggle to find faults with the game that is just an upgrade and indeed an improvement on a masterpiece. If you haven't played either Myst or Riven before, I recommend playing them both, and preferably in order by playing the latest version of Myst first. But it doesn't really matter, you can enjoy the games regardless if you've played the previous one. They are, in effect, standalone stories. Have any of you played the remake of Riven? If you have, let us know down in the comments what you thought of it, what you enjoyed about it, what you thought they could have done better. Perhaps there's something I've missed. Thanks for watching everyone, please as ever like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you all soon.